You're listening to Prosperity Report, Love and Money Podcast. I'm your host, Kanae Corder, best-selling author, international speaker, and clinical hypnotherapist specializing in financial therapy. Each week, we'll bring you actionable ideas, tips, tools, and resources to help you get the mindset shift you need to feel more confident personally and financially, so you can reduce stress, work less, and make a huge impact on your world and your income. Now, let's get into today's show. How long have you been trying to find the confidence to go all in on building and selling your coaching program? 6 months? A year? More? It took me a while to really get my business off the ground too. I was confused, overwhelmed, and I felt like I was competing with all the other coaches out there. I was scared I would fail. And guess what? I pretty much did. My first coaching business crashed with the markets back in 2009. But I had to remind myself, the business failed. I didn't. Now I have 7 income streams, most of them passive, a thriving coaching business, and hundreds of students in my course. I've learned a thing or two, and I want to share all that with you. Join me in my upcoming free masterclass, the 3 behind-the-scenes secrets to one-on-one coaching success in 2009 and beyond. I'll teach you the right way to start and how to produce more profits if you already have a coaching business of your own. Register for free today. Go to kanaecorder.com/masterclass. Learn the 3 behind-the-scenes secrets to one-on-one coaching success in 2009 and beyond. Register today. kanaecorder.com/masterclass. It's time. Every flaw that makes up me was put together perfectly. That's what I was told. But the kids in school didn't get the news, so they pointed, hee-heed, and ha-ha'd. Boy, was I mad when I found out that beauty is only skin deep, and that nobody could see the beauty inside of me, no matter how pretty it was. Yes, my eyes were dry, because it was inside that I cried, to appear unscathed by those words you'd say, but the childhood bruise that came from you never healed properly. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, they'll break my heart. So I built up a shield that wouldn't let me feel and would help me hurt less. But the little girl wasn't ready for what came next, a serious act of disrespect from 40-year-old males that would yell, "Don't she got some DSLs?" I could barely understand, but by the placement of his hand, he wanted my lips on his DSLs. I'm only 12. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, they'll break my heart. Mommy helped me see that beauty was more than skin deep, more than 2 lips with a distinctive split. And even if the whole world didn't see it that way, I would have to be happy anyway, because my self-esteem is the most important thing, and no, you can't take that away from me. And since I've learned that lesson, I've received blessing after blessing. And I know now everybody has flaws. And if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all, because sticks and stones may break your bones, but words, they'll break your heart. Overcame childhood teasing. That's an accomplishment, but it's not on my resume. I wrote that poem when I was on ABC's Extreme Makeover show. It changed the trajectory of my life completely. And yeah, being on ABC is on my resume, but overcoming childhood bullying, that's not. Why? Well, where do you put it? Do you put it under experience? Do you put it under education? Maybe you put it under accomplishments. It's really no way of saying where it goes. You could put it under organizations that you're a part of, right? Because there are lots of people who overcame childhood teasing and bullying, and it's not on their resume either. But there's a tribe of us out there. We probably don't share our stories anymore once we grow up, once we overcome, once we gain the confidence to tell our stories differently. But deep down inside, that little girl who had to stand up for herself is still there, standing up for herself today. So let me ask you a question. What's not on your resume? And yeah, you may have a story of your own. I'm sure you do. Is it on your resume? Probably not. So what's not on your resume? Usually, the things that are not on our resume are the things that we overlook, the things that we're ashamed of. But most important, the things that are not on your resume are the things you haven't done yet. I want to talk about all three. Let's start with the things we overlook. Just like overcoming childhood teasing, I overlook it. Well, of course, it doesn't really have a space on my resume, but there are other things I've accomplished that I overlook. In my book, The Art of Starting Over, I tell a story about how my 5-year-old nephew, he's 27 now, but at the time he was 5, and he and I went for a walk. And I was talking to him about what I wanted to do and maybe how unaccomplished I was. And he said, Auntie, you're always talking about what you're going to do next or what you haven't done, but you don't talk about what you've done. And you've done a lot. Yes, a 5-year-old gave me that advice, and I never forgot it. Of course I didn't. I wrote it in my book years later. But I know now that yes, focusing on my targets, my next accomplishment is important, but it's important not to overlook the things that I've overcome, the things that I've accomplished. Many of those things are super important. Even being on ABC's Extreme Makeover, I rarely talk about that. Do you know that I was on the Oprah show? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. A lot of you probably don't know that I've actually been on the Oprah show. That's a big darn deal. It's not on my resume though. It's kind of that thing you overlook. Even being on ABC's Extreme Makeover, it's interesting. What have you done that you're overlooking? Give it some thought. Have you ever been told that you bury the lead? Well, I've been told that. There was one person that didn't even know I wrote a book. And maybe you're thinking, oh, Kanae wrote a book? Well, when do you get this into the conversation? You know, sometimes you don't get a chance to talk about your accomplishments. And maybe sometimes you're listening to others, so you don't put your accomplishments out there. Well, when you're confident and you know that it doesn't matter what other people think, then you can talk about your accomplishments. You don't have to talk about what you're doing next. Sometimes we're overlooking our accomplishments because we don't find prestige in them. We're finding prestige in the next big accomplishment. Go back. Feel the pride in all those things you've done, big or small, because they all count and they all add up to your great story. Now, let's go a little bit deeper. I want to encourage you to stop overlooking your accomplishments. Start counting them, each and every one of them. I want to move on to the things that are not on your resume that you are ashamed of. Yeah, it might even be that childhood teasing that you're afraid of. Maybe there was an experience. It might have been traumatic or dramatic, but it made you strong and it made you who you are today. Well, you already know that I'd like you to let go of your story. I talked about that in our bonus episode. Let go of that story, sure, but just because you no longer play the victim, that doesn't mean it all goes away. You don't have to tell the story to own the accomplishment. I just mentioned that I was on the Oprah show. I even mentioned that I was on ABC's Extreme Makeover. Both of those things have a story along with it, but I no longer have to tell the story, but I can honor the accomplishment. I told you about my teasing. Now, in the poem, you kind of got the story. And that's how I resolved it. It was the first time at 29 years old, I wrote that poem. But if you listen, I was teased at 12, 13. It was so many years later that I finally resolved it. But you won't hear me talk about childhood teasing because it's just not important. They didn't break my spirit. They didn't take my confidence. I still had it. Like my mom told me, my self-esteem is a very important thing. And no, you can't take that away from me. So don't let the stories that you're ashamed of chip away at your confidence. Sure, maybe you did something wrong, or maybe it wasn't even you that did something wrong. Maybe it was something wrong done to you. But is it okay for you to be okay, even though that thing that happened to you was not okay? And I get some tragedies, some trauma just doesn't go on a resume, but you could name it something else. Be creative. Think about it. No matter what, it's your story. Nobody's taking that away from you, but it doesn't have to hold you back. It doesn't have to block you from the success you know you deserve and desire, more importantly. Your desires are important. And that kind of brings me to our third point. The things that are not on your resume are the things you haven't done yet. Do you want to get them on your resume? Then you've got to do them. You've got to commit one at a time. Maybe there are 5 or 6 different things you want to do. Trust me, I have a new idea every day. Ask my best friend. She has to listen to all of them. Ask my mom. She has to listen to them too. Ask my boyfriend. Him too. I always have a new good idea, but you can't do them all at the same time. And that's one of the reasons why we haven't done those things that we want to do. We're probably just overwhelmed by all the ideas we have. Maybe we're overwhelmed by what it would take because you're worried about how. All you need to know is what? I want to start a coaching business. That's enough. Somebody else did it, like me, that can tell you how. All you have to know is what. Don't get overwhelmed by all your good ideas. Don't get overwhelmed by, maybe the tech that goes into it. Don't get overwhelmed by the how, the step by step. There's already a blueprint out there. You don't have to recreate the coaching wheel. Maybe you're creative, an artist, and you're wondering, how can I be a successful artist? There are other people who have done it. Get a mentor. Get in a coaching program. Take a class. There are ways. Don't get overwhelmed and don't stop. Prioritize. Just decide, I'm going to do this first and this second and this third, and then stick to it. That second part is really important. Once you prioritize, you've got to stick to it. If you don't stick to it, it will never happen and it won't be on your resume. The other reason why we don't get things on our resumes is because we're afraid. We're just fearful, and fear gets in the way of success every time. Did you know you could feel the fear and do it anyway? Did you know that? That's brave. Brave is not the absence of fear. It's the overcoming the fear that makes you brave. So be afraid and still do it. Now, over the next few weeks and episodes, we're going to talk more about what you need to start a business. But I just want you to know that you can have fear and start a business, because the further you go, the more you get done. Eventually that fear goes away. And even if it doesn't go away, you don't notice it as much. More importantly, you just don't let it stop you. You're like, whatever, I can feel fear and have success. Now, here's something you will have to get rid of. Even though you can keep the fear and be successful, this idea that you're not good enough, it's not going to work. Sure, people are very successful and they get to the top. And then what happens? They're miserable. So many suicides happened in the last few years of people who got to the top. And you know why that's happening? Because they feel like imposters. They feel like they're not good enough. And they feel like any moment they're going to be found out. Can you imagine the pressure of not feeling good enough, but still somehow making it to the top? You probably feel like a con artist, a liar, a cheater. All those negative words that don't even begin to add up to who you are, who you really are. You are enough. You're probably more than enough. You're probably not giving yourself credit, especially if you're a woman. Women, we just don't give ourselves credit for all of the things we've done. That's why our resumes are so empty. That's the stuff that's not on our resume because we just don't get it. We just don't realize that we are enough. We're more than enough. And we can take that enoughness and start our business, coaching, creative, or otherwise. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I'm going to talk more about that in upcoming episodes. Here's one that I am going to keep really, really short. This really is a reason why there are things that are not on your resume, and it's just downright laziness. Lazy. You just won't get your butt up off the couch and do it. Maybe you feel like somebody else will do it. It's your calling. Nobody else is going to do your calling. So get rid of the laziness. And that's all I'm going to say about that, where there is no place for laziness in purpose. And you know this. So if you're being lazy right now, listening to this podcast, I'm so proud of you because that took some effort. Now, go ahead, take the next step. No more laziness. Thank you. So glad we had this conversation. Distractions, though. Laziness can sometimes be distractions. Like you can have distractions and then you go to the laziness because of the overwhelm, right? The overwhelm pushes you down. Those distractions are part of that overwhelm, and then it makes you lazy. So you're distracted because you're doing 10,000 things, none of which are your purpose, none of which are your passion. But for some reason, you just keep doing them. Why? Familiarity. That's it. That's the easy answer. That's why you do it. You're distracted and you keep doing the things that are not your purpose, not your passion, because you're familiar with them. And this newfound business idea, it's not so familiar. And yes, somebody else has done it, but you've never done it. Don't be distracted. Go back to prioritizing. And when you find that you are distracted, maybe by social media, television, somebody else's dream, have you ever watched somebody else live their dream? The answer is yes. If you ever watched sports, if you ever watched a movie, if you ever went to a comedy club, you've watched somebody else live their dream. It's time to stop doing that. Sure, you can watch them live their dream, but you better be living yours as well. Don't be distracted by somebody else's dream. And don't compete with them. You know we talk about that. Don't even worry about them. You don't have to compete. Just be your true, authentic self. Give your 100%. And if they tease you, so what? You can overcome that. I did. You can do it too. They're not going to agree with everything you do. So if you're waiting for the world to agree with you, wait no more. I can solve that for you really quickly. Some people will agree. Some people won't. Some people have no opinion at all. It's your purpose. That's the only opinion you need right now is yours. You don't need anybody else's opinion to move forward. Maybe you need some direction, some guidance. But all you need is you to agree to move forward. So fear, not feeling good enough, laziness, overwhelm, distraction, maybe even some isolation keeps you from doing those things that you want to do. Maybe you feel like you'll be alone, right? Because those people will disagree with you and you'll be all alone out there in entrepreneur land. But you won't be. You have a tribe right here. You won't be. There's somebody that did it. Connect with them. You can get mentors. You can get a tribe, community. And once you start getting clients, they'll build you up. Let me tell you, it is nothing like having a client that believes in you. Oh my gosh. All the love that you didn't get from your parents, you will get from your clients. Trust me. Now, I know that's sad to say, especially coming from a counselor, but it's true. Now, don't be dependent on that, of course, but just know that it will come. It will come. And it feels so good. The last one I'll bring up is confusion. I find that a lot of business owners don't get started just because they're confused, not sure what to do first, second, third. Remember I said prioritize? Maybe you can't prioritize because you're confused. And maybe your message alone is confused. Maybe you don't know your target market. Maybe you don't know exactly what you want your coaching program to be or your business to be. I work with entertainers, artists, coaches, and what I find most is that they want to do a lot of different things. They don't know which ones to do first, and maybe they're confused about how all of these things go together. No worries, it will come together. Just choose one, get really clear on that one, and then the others will come. I mean, think about it. You see my coaching system. We talk about wealth, wellness, love. We talk about reducing stress. We talk about working less. We talk about making a huge impact on the world and your income. We talk about having multiple income streams. We talk about a lot of different things. Maybe there's a podcast host inside of you. Maybe there's a coach inside of you. Maybe there's an artist inside of you. Even a comedian. So many choices. I get it. And that's why you're confused, because you're multi-talented and you could basically do anything you put your mind to. And that's not even on your resume. I bet you didn't think I was going to tie this all back together, but you know me. I can tie any two things together. So what's not on your resume, and why is it not on there? Is it because you're overlooking it? Is it because you're ashamed of it? Or is it because you just haven't done it yet? Maybe you're afraid. Maybe you don't feel good enough. Maybe you're being lazy. Maybe you're overwhelmed, distracted, confused, and need to prioritize. Or maybe you just feel like you'll be isolated. Well, you can be in business for yourself without being in business by yourself. That's why I created Prosperity Club. You probably heard the promo in the beginning where I told you about my free masterclass. I think you should go and join it. If you're still thinking about it, maybe you already did. If you're still thinking about it, just know it is packed, full of value, and you get to ask questions live. And if you miss it, register anyway if you're not available. You know why? Because you're going to get the replay. And if you want to, you can reach out to my team or and we'll answer your questions. The masterclass will show you how to build a business that you can put on your resume. It'll be the business that becomes your resume. Now, I've told you before, and I'll tell you again, you are totally freaking awesome. So it's time. Take the next step. Join the masterclass. Choose something that's not on your resume that you haven't done yet and do it. Choose something that maybe you feel ashamed of and talk about it. Talk about how you overcame it. You never know. There could be somebody out there going through the same thing and you can connect with them. And if there's something you're overlooking that's just totally freaking awesome, talk about it. Now, I know some of these things are never going to go on your resume. You can have this life resume, a separate resume. Maybe you don't send it out or it's not in your bio, but doesn't mean it wasn't important to your life. So don't you forget it. And if you don't tell anybody else, tell yourself. And that's all for today. I can't wait to see you next week. And I can't wait to see you on the masterclass. Have a prosperous day, my Prosperos. Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you want more love and money conversations, subscribe to this podcast. Also, tell your friends about us. I'll see you next episode. But in the meantime, head on over to KeneCorder.com for more tips, tools, and resources. And go ahead and leave us a comment if you like. We'd love to hear from you. This show is not to replace professional counsel. The best advice comes from a professional you know. The topics discussed in this podcast are general in nature and are for entertainment and informational purposes only. We encourage you to meet with a professional to discuss your specific situation, whether financial or therapeutic. That's all for now. I'll see you sooner. Remember, no matter what anybody ever tells you, you can have wealth in all of its forms. Believe it, and you will soon see it.